Tell me something. What do you see? Somebody tell me.
Cell phone.
Oh, really?
A brick.
Handset.
You could say so.
iPhone. Communication device.
Communication device. Well, if you ask me, I'll say this is power. Cell phones in Africa have done a little bit more than just communication. They have empowered young people. They have given us an opportunity to create, an opportunity to circumvent the existing, the status quo. Ideas as simple, as small as M-Pesa, an idea from Kenya, was able to, impact us because of a cell phone. We are able to send money to our relatives from one place to another with ease. And so when you look at what has happened in the telecommunication industry, what has happened with phones, you wonder what it is that we haven't done in other sectors. Sectors such as energy. We ultimately have a pretty serious problem. We have used the same technology from way back in the days, 3 stone fires. And the men in this house know for sure, my African brothers, that we hardly care. We can afford to stand far away and watch our mothers and daughters stay confined in these toxic pollutant emissions that have claimed more than 500,000 lives per year. An environment that it's so hard to, prepare a meal for your family. Just think about it. Imagine having to blow into this, every now and then just so to keep your flame going. It's so hard. And we hardly appreciate things as simple as the amount of time it takes them to collect this firewood, to prepare a meal for us. They waste time and energy just to get us firewood or something, to keep our homes going. And we should be considerate and realize the amount of effect this has on our environment. The inefficiencies in the technologies have greatly affected our ecosystem. We have hardly been able to sustain the trees, the greenery, hardly. The main problem is because of the kind of technologies we are using. They're inefficient. And it's high time we embraced something new, something as simple as a motor stove, something that's as simple as a gasifier, a technology that will empower households. Well, my story begins, say, 6 months ago. I was privileged to be part of a World Bank project that was designed to create a conducive environment for this kind of technologies. And as we were down the road 2 quarters, I realized that what happens when these projects wind down? What happens when the money ceases to exist? What happens when the project closes down? And it's the same story we've had over the years. For the last 4 decades, the West and our development partners have given us these contributions in terms of interventions. But what is it that we do to enable us to sustain these ideas and have these pretty nice ideas continue to empower our people? So these kind of questions, it was easy to find answers because of the kind of energy around me. I had young people around me. A great friend of mine, Yusuf, he had this really interesting idea. He wanted to have an energy incubator. He thought we needed a place where anyone who has an idea, a business idea, trying to tackle energy issues, deserves to have a place where he can, have his ideas cushioned before it goes into the marketplace. And Yusuf offered a place. And along came a German friend of mine, Sebastian. Sebastian was here as a volunteer, pretty young man in his early 20s. But he thought he could do something in Africa. He thought he could bring his engineering skills and help us, work with us, set up a factory. And a few other guys came on board. And guess what? It didn't take long. Within a week, we had the amount of money needed to set up a factory. We had a place, and we had a team. We had all the skill sets necessary. And the most amazing thing about this story is the fact that one of our co-founders is a tinsmith. Imagine a tinsmith. This guy is known in East Africa as the master tinsmith, Saddam. Saddam is amazing. When I met Saddam, I'm like, this guy has to be on board. And we have done amazing things with Saddam. So I'm going to play a video for you so you see what it is that we do to come up with this stove. A motor is a pretty complex, technology in terms of its intricacies to give you this kind of, advantages you want to enjoy as a household. And it's pretty hard for any other, tinsmith to work within this environment with elementary working tools, kind of semi-industrial, to produce such a thing. We started off with 5 stoves a day, and we kept tweaking our processes, kept tweaking, streamlining. Now, 5 months down the road, we are able to produce 30 stoves a day. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. 30 stoves a day. It is amazing. And for me as a businessman, I really saw some cash coming in for our investors and for us to keep something going. It was really good, a good feeling. But besides empowering these young men you see in our factories and being able to have an environment where we can think and put ideas together, each time you go into the marketplace, you realize what we are producing is a lot more than just a stove. This stove, motor stove, empowers households. The motor stove is the next mobile phone. The motor is unlike any other stove. It will take care of our cooking energy needs. So I'll ask you another question. Somebody tell me what this is. Horse corn. What do you see? What it is that you see when you look at this object? Of course, trash. Useless. That's right. That's right. It is useless, especially people in Ginger would say the same thing. But this is fuel. This is fuel, and you wouldn't look at this as fuel if you didn't have this kind of technology. Now, a motor enables users to use what you call rubbish, biomass, or maize corns, maize cobs, to at least, give you some energy to cook. And I'll share this other story. The more we interact with these markets, I met some ladies in Ginger. Ginger is a part of Uganda that's known for 2 things: growing sugar canes, Madivani and Kakira, and the locals are known for growing maize. And every after or during these harvest seasons, they tend to have, take their grains off the corn and have a pile of maize cobs that's a problem. But as soon as we had gotten down there for an agriculture show, these guys saw something. They saw a motor, and they were so amazed. We had taken a few stoves just for a demonstration, and we sold all of them within a day. Wow. They had never seen something that enabled them what they used to call, trash, maize cobs, working within the stove as a fuel. It was amazing. They had to call us, please send some more stoves to Ginger. And the kind of stories you hear that this technology does for our people, it does touch these households. It does warm these hearts and offers us as well as we innovate these wonderful, warm smiles. You know, for a lady who will tell you, you know what, Emmanuel, I want to thank you for this. And I'm like, I should be thanking you for giving me the opportunity to sell. She's like, no, you have no idea. This is amazing. You know, I can afford to work for longer hours, go back home at 8 p.m. with some more extra income. And I'm not worried about preparing a meal within the next 30 minutes for my family. My daughters are able to use this stove, the motor stove, and prepare a meal pretty fast and have some time to read and revise, take care of their academic work. Those kind of stories give us the energy. They fuel our enterprise, and we feel we are really fueling change. It is amazing. Really amazing. The kind of conversations that the technology we have fuels. Imagine one user somewhere in Mukono. She volunteered to secure a space for us. There was a local demonstration. She's like, guys, calm down. Please come to Mukono. I'm going to pay for the tent. Just think about it. I'm going to pay for the tent. Just bring your stoves and please do a demo. So I'm like, I won't send my guys. Let me go down there and see this lady. And I'm like, you know, tell me what you think, what you feel about this technology. And she's like, you know what? I used to spend about $14 per month just to buy charcoal. Very expensive. But lately, I spend around 75 cents per week and buy a few logs of wood, chop them into pieces as small as this. Of course, we knew this much. But she was telling me something that I could hardly comprehend. It was like, in terms of Ugandan currency, she uses 6,000 shillings per month. 6,000 shillings per month. Yet she was spending around 35,000 shillings in a month. And in terms of cost savings, she thought she was having something so cool, something worthy of sharing, something that her community ought to have. So she offered to pay for the space, have us go down there and demonstrate, show these guys how cool a motor is and what it can do for the community. And so I don't feel just like any other typical businessman. I feel what we have, what we are doing is empowerment. Empowerment. You know, unlike any other technology, a motor gives households these, liberties, freedoms, choices, kind of things that anyone would love. Imagine having the choice. There's so many choices that you don't have to depend on a charcoal supplier as it was way back. You have an opportunity to choose from any biomass around you, as long as it's dry, to prepare a meal for your family. So, where we progress, the key question here is, how do we sustain? How do we keep on fueling the fire of change? How do we keep it going? What is it that we can, borrow from the telecommunication industry? And what I see that perhaps you could, I could share with you is that ecosystem. An ecosystem that, as far as Africa is concerned, I think should begin from some kind of cottage industries, some kind of production units, something as simple as a factory, motor factory, right there. So For us, what we do is that we are using the existing technology. We are taking advantage of things as simple as mobile money. Our resellers send us money from different parts of the country. They place their orders through mobile money. And we put their merchandise, the stove, onto a local transport system. And these stoves reach their destination. As soon as the stoves get there, these locals use something as basic as a bicycle. And this bicycle distribution, mobile distribution, is being fueled and powered by youths. These guys are really innovative. What they're doing is they're moving a stove from one place to another without increasing the price and making it easier for the buyer to purchase. If they're going to use a car, it would affect. If they're going to maybe have a shop or something like that, those costs will ultimately affect the final price of the product. And so we are trying to make this ecosystem much more beautiful and friendly for these guys. Some of them didn't go to school, but they're benefiting from the existence of these motor factories and our enterprise. So we are trying to incorporate inventory management systems and financial systems, simple applications that can run on a mobile phone, so that they're able to put in daily entries, put in their data. So I spent so much along the way, and I've sold the stove so much. I bought at this price. These stoves have serial numbers, something like a name, John. Say John left the factory on this date, and now has been transferred to so and so at this specific price. And so we know where the stove will be. But the most interesting thing about it is that it enables us to gather this market intelligence, because that's what is missing in the industry. You have to be in position to understand what all these demographics offer you. Uganda has 34 million people, and the market is pretty much segmented. For a business to try out all these options, how do we get into circles? How do we get into schools? How do we get into house? How do we get into rural areas? It is a risk. Each time you do something that isn't quite good, you're going to lose some money. But with this data, you're able to understand when do these guys make their sales, over the weekend or weekdays. Are they selling in the rural areas or urban areas? And so you understand how cash flows, and then you understand how best to also make your decisions and direct them along the way. So as soon as the buyer, this is the most interesting part, as soon as the buyer gets the stove, they begin to enjoy these benefits, because by then they can just go into their shamba or their garden, and cut, say, and biomass. Just cut it. You don't have to wait for someone to supply you with charcoal, and drop the biomass somewhere and just let it dry. Let it dry. As soon as it is dry, they're able to use it in the stove. And this is very interesting because the way the motor does it is amazing. These fumes and the pollutants, the smoke that usually goes into their eyes when they're using the three-stone fires, the soot that goes onto their saucepans, they're using three-stone fires, or rather makes some of their walls dirty. These gases are the ones that stove, extracts from the fuels and burns, combusts these gases to make the flame. So they use that flame to burn, to cook. So while the stove reduces the pollutant emissions by 90%, it's also making the environment clean. So a mother is able to cook a meal, prepare a meal, and have their kids around. They're not worried about their health or our health. So it's pretty cool. It's really empowering. It's amazing. It is amazing. So we have gone this far, and we feel the ecosystem offers several opportunities. At that point, we feel as soon as the user is able to use the stove and cook, the other advantages that come along with it is that when you're cooking, it is carbonizing these fuels into charcoal. So you're making your own charcoal. And usually, the amount of charcoal that the motor produces is much more than what you would use on an ordinary stove. So you have some kind of surplus. And guess what? This surplus can be used as biochar to enhance the soil fertility. With this kind of fertility in the soil, you'll have much more crops produced, and ultimately the household income will improve. And there will be other avenues for other people who want to invest into biomass, so as they can take it further down to industries to produce briquettes, all these other alternative fuels. And so I want to ask you guys, how do you want to be part of this change? How do you want to be part of this ecosystem? Africa. I know at least in Uganda, I need at least to make 6 million stoves. But how about you, wherever you are? Our needs in Uganda are not just unique. The same needs across the place. So how do you want to keep this fire burning? Thank you.